Welcome back. It is episode 136. I'm your host, Jacob Harris. This podcast is brought to you by Achievement Apex and Power Pit Rockingham. Today we are at Total Physique Performance. I would also like to give a shout out to Rockingham Supplement Mart, as well as Ped Test Australia and Bulk Gym Chalk. And I cannot forget Thirst Trap, which is what we are hydrating with today on this podcast. I am joined by the current WBO Global Super Featherweight Champion, Jackson England. Thanks for being here, man.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure, mate. I am going to get educated on boxing. I've got so many questions. I came across a few stats, and I'm going to spit it at you so that someone listening can go, okay, wow, this guy's done all of that. Some of the stuff I came across was that your career started kind of more seriously around 2017.
Yes.
Yeah. Said you've done over 100 rounds. I never knew they counted it like that.
Yeah. So like what it means with the 100 rounds is obviously in the way they map it out is the rounds of fights that you've had. So most people when they start their professional career, they do 4-rounders. You get some places in states where they, especially here in Australia, or even over in America as well, they'll do like 5-rounders. You know, that's more your start off contender level, I'd say. And then as you start to move on to, you know, your local titles, your state titles, your national titles, and then onto your regional titles, as they say, and then onto international. It can be from 6-round fights to 8-round fights for some. And then when you reach the international and the world level, it's 10 and 12. So I think the last couple of fights I've had have all been 10-rounders, to be honest. So yeah, so that's all up at that regional international level, all up there.
Yeah, interesting, because I was looking at that compared to, I think it actually said, did it say wins and losses? I think that's how it came up. So It was like 16. Was it 16 wins?
Yep.
And then it was like 8. Was it KOs?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that's 8 knockouts seems like a big number to me. Is that a big number in boxing?
Yeah, I think on my record, it's a 50-50 on that. So like, yeah, it's a 50% knockout ratio, which is good. And, you know, I back my power. I think for a small guy, I definitely back my punching power 100%. But it all depends on who's in front of you. There's some people who are just ridiculously tough. Doesn't matter how hard you punch. But there's people out there as well who don't like to get punched in certain areas. So you'll find out usually when you're in the fight. But yeah, about a 50% knockout ratio on my record. And I've got 3 losses as well. So what's that? 16, 18, 19 fights.
Okay, and the three losses, were they towards the start of the career, or have they been
No,
recent?
so the way I look at them is really it wasn't so much luck or anything like that. You know, losses to me, especially as a professional athlete, it's more lessons in anything, you know. Like I can't really sit here and say really losing. It's more learning in that perspective. The first loss I had was here locally in Perth, and I can't remember what number fight that was, but that was in that point where I had a very unfair decision, and I could sit this about all 3 of my losses that they're very unfair decisions. But boxing's boxing, life goes on, and it's not the losses. It's not really the wins that build you. It's the losses and the things that happen in your life that carry you forward as an athlete. You know, most people like to give it up and throw it away, but it's about what that does to you and how you come back stronger at the end of the day. So that first loss I had, I know to myself I won that fight, but looking at how the scorecard had it, everything like that, there's a lot of different factors into what happened on that night. And me to this day still don't know why it was given the other way. But I believed in myself I won the fight, and that's the way it was. I chased the rematch, as with the other 2 losses I've got on my record as well. And the guy said no, and he's a local Perth guy as well. But me and him are nothing but friends, you know, like we're nothing but respect for each other. We're fighters. You know, fighters fight. We don't need to bring personal things into it. Some people like to, but no, I'm very fair and very, very respectful on everybody, all walks of life. And then the second loss I had in Sydney. The other 2 losses were both in Sydney. The first loss I had in Sydney, it was against great former fighter and great Aussie fighter Paul Fleming. And it was funny when that fight came about because I went from the first loss and then won the Australian title after that, and then went on to other bigger fights and then got a chance to fight for WBC Asia Gold and the and the IBO Oceania Orient, which is just, well, you think of them like trophies. So belts are basically trophies to build you up in the rankings to be able to go for a world title. So these were belts that put me in the world ratings to be able to go for a world title. And you win, and as you build some fights, you don't have to win a belt to get a world rating. The rating's there, but it depends on the scalp you're trying to take to put in your resume. And after I won one of the fights here local in Perth, put me at number 33 in the world. I was about I think my son was born a month or maybe less than a month after that. And then I had the call up to fight Paul Fleming, and I remember we were chasing that fight for about a year and a half. And I said to everybody else, all the Australian boxing people, I said to everyone, I said, I want that fight. I'd love to have that fight. Great opportunity. And then they called me and they said, do you want the fight with Paul Fleming? I said, yep, no worries. They said, you've only got 5 weeks to prep for it. I said, no worries. And because I'm never out of the gym, you never know when a phone call like that happens. You know, they might call you on 2 weeks' notice. They might call you on a week's notice or 2 days. So my philosophy in life and as a professional athlete is to be able to be ready at all times. You know, no matter what's going on, you're in the gym, working your craft, getting better, and you might just get a call. You got to be here, fight this person, great opportunity, got to weigh it up. You can't leave anything left behind. You know, you don't want to be that person that leaves those opportunities behind. So that's obviously where that fight came about, and then I got robbed on that fight. Another circumstance like the last one, but
yeah, help me understand that. Sorry to cut
no,
you off, but help me understand. When you're saying robbed, I'm assuming this is boxing points.
Yeah, so it's hard when you look at the perspective on that, because you can look at like as an example, the first fight I had that was here local. There was no A or B side. We're both from Perth. We both fought. How I look at the fight is my perception and the way I view it. But when you've got myself and 95 of the WA population here for the fight, and they watch the fight, they all agree something happened with the commission and the judges that gave it to the other person. But at the end of the day, that's how they saw it. I can't sit here and complain about it. Same thing with the other loss I had as well with Paul Fleming. Me and him are friends. Like, he's one of the best guys I know, Paul Fleming. He's one of the funniest guys I know as well. But with our fight, we had Fight of the Year. We got awarded Fight of the Year because of the masterclass and the brutality we brought to the sport. He was bleeding, I was bleeding. We just went to war for 10 rounds straight. And unfortunately, I didn't get the decision on that. But I felt to myself, I did enough for the win. And I had a lot of people approach me after the fight, big Australian names, even world names, agree with me. But even though they agree with me and everything like that, a decision's a decision. It's been made. There's people who like to withdraw the decision. They want to make it a no contest, or they want to readdress it. They want to have a look and all that stuff. The records, at the end of the day, they're there for a reason, but people look too much upon them. You know, they don't look about what happens behind the scenes or during either. So 3 losses on my record, someone may look at that and be like, oh, well, he's got 3 losses on his record. He's not perfect. You know, nobody's perfect at the end of the day. But it's how you look at those losses. Like, oh, out of those 3 losses, has he been never knocked out? No. Out of those 3 losses, have you been hurt? No. So there's not really weaknesses or anything's there other than me learning from those experiences that build me to be a better fighter. That's it. It's the old stigma of fighting, like back in the Ali days and the Leonard and Duran. Those guys didn't matter about losses. Losses didn't mean anything. You know, Floyd Mayweather started the whole stigma, and it's starting to shift now, which is good. But for years, you had to be something and O. No one had to lose their O. But at the end of the day, fighters fight. You lose, win or draw, you come back again. Come back and fight again. That's how it works, you know. But when it comes to with like you asked before, robberies can happen, as the Americans love to say as well, is that, you know, daylight robberies. You know, like some people can win a fight, how in many circumstances with the 3 losses, not the first or the second, I'd say the second, but then also my third one, you know to yourself you won the fight, and there's other people who know you won the fight, and then all of a sudden the other guy gets his hand raised and you're like, what's happened there? No one knows.
So what do they count the points on? Like, I'm assuming it's the main stuff, right? How many times you hit them, how many times they don't hit you. Like it's got
basically, basically. But then there's also many things like ring generalship. So controlling not only the fight but also the ring. So knowing that, hey, someone might be more aggressive on the front foot and they're controlling the ring. They're making the other person work around and they're almost showing a dominance factor. You get scored on that, but you also can be scored on being defensive as well. So if you're on the back foot and say he's not landing punches on you, but you're landing punches on him, you get scored on being defensive, but more on the back foot. So it's a mixture of things. So you got to have the right boxing guys. And some judges, honestly, it's like they're on their phones or they're looking outside or they've gone out for a smoke break. It's like they're not even there. And then you get really good judges who watch every little detail and can pinpoint when a punch lands, because there's about 3 or 4 judges there, each on the side of the rings, to be able to see different things. So one judge might say, oh, that punch landed. But the other angle from the other perception of another judge, the shot didn't look like it landed, so he won't score it. So that's why they tally him up all at the end when it's a fight, either goes unanimous, split, or there's a no contest there, or there's anything how it goes there. It's just how they usually rule it out to give a decision.
Yeah, so sometimes it can be, there's different aspects of different sports, if you want to call it that. Bodybuilding is a big one that people would bring it up with, or when I've spoken to people, right, it's very subjective, right? It's like I think that person looks better than that person, which is why a lot of people, I guess, if we talk about something like powerlifting or weightlifting, some people like better because it's very simple of like, I lifted more than you. Yeah. It's a little bit more cut and dry. It's just kind of like, but even then there's politics in there, right? Someone will squat and then it wasn't low enough and then people are doing the same thing. But I guess I wanted to understand it from that perspective of boxing. And like for me, my understanding, I guess, and you know this yourself, right? Because there's always like a general population perspective. Yeah. So to me, I always think of old boxing for some reason. I don't know why. Like I always think of that really old boxing, right? Like that American, like, kind of like big red gloves. Like I'm always thinking of those kind of old matches because obviously now there's so many, it seems to be, there's a lot of different federations and stuff like that. And WBO wasn't one I was completely aware of. I don't understand where that comes into America. Is there? So
it's not really America in itself. So if I explain as they call the alphabet sanctioning bodies, so each sanctioning body obviously has their own belts and their own things that they work for towards. So there's basically 4 main ones, and then there's the other ones that are bridge off, which should count. They do still count, but they're not as funded and as they all seem to work together in their own sort of right, I guess. I don't fully know the back ends of that. But so if I rule them off, there's the famous one, the WBC, which is the green one that everyone loves. And because Floyd Mayweather, all the other guys, they've had the WBC. So the WBC is one, WBA is another, IBF, and then there's WBO. So those are the main 4 ones. And they all stand for, International Boxing Federation, World Boxing Organization. Like they all have their own thing. So they're all sanctioning bodies for you to win titles, to be able to build up in the rankings, to be able to get your shot at a world title. And the problem with boxing now, which I agree with, it's not like the old days where there was only one belt to one division and you'd fight. You make your way up, and you don't get a belt until you become the world champion. Where now, unfortunately, the way it works is that everyone's a champion. Everyone gets the chance to win. And I'm not bagging myself or anybody else. But the way it is like, okay, you'll win this belt for this and this belt for this. And then you make your way up and then the world title's the thing. That's why, even for myself, like I'm grateful enough to have won the belts I've fought for and get to the rankings I am, to be top 5 in the world at the moment from my last fight. I'm forever grateful. But that's just a stepping stone to get to where I really want to get to. And I let my parents keep all my belts. So all the boxing memorabilia, all the stuff I've done in my career thus far, I let my parents have, because I want to give back to them, especially from them, making the enormous sacrifices they've made in their lives, their careers, to help me with my dream, And, they're my parents. I love them to death. And the amount of support and love that they give me back and help me to achieve my dreams and to be a part of my journey. You know, I couldn't say anything else upon that. You know, the love I have for them, as you love your parents, but I let them keep those and let them hold on to them to give back, to show them on the ongoing support that they constantly give me. But I have made a promise to myself that when I win a world title one day, that comes with me, because that's the pinnacle of where you should be. So that will come with me. They can keep the others as my love and gratefulness for them. But yeah, that pretty much how I'd explain with the alphabet sanctioning bodies. And then you got the other ones like the IBO, which is one I've got as well that I've had the chance of winning. And then there's the that's 5 basically. So you got the 5 main sanctioning bodies. The 5th one they don't really put towards, and that's all politics again. You know, politics, money, funding, and it's a shame. You know, like being a boxing historian as well. Like I think of, when you think of boxing, you think old fighters. You think of Rocky. Think of all the real classic sort of things. And there was only one belt. There was only one thing, and it's different nowadays, which is a bit of a shame. But that's the same thing with people with not fighting each other. Like we had that fight with Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney that the world blew up about. But at the same time, there's a lot of things around that have already gone wrong already, you know, like the over-involvement with social media, that's one thing. And that's an ongoing thing in professional boxing now, is that you got so many people who are more focused on being famous than they are of actually being fighters, you know? And then there's the other stigma on not the social media, but then the back end side of boxing of, okay, well, who's picking their fights and who's trying to do it just for clout and who's doing it to actually be somewhere and get somewhere in the top of the food chain, you know? And a lot of these fighters are only starting to fight each other now because, you know, it could be social media, it could be that they actually want to fight each other, who knows? But for many years, it was this person wouldn't fight this person because of this. There'd be some sort of reason. And it was annoying because people want to see the best fight each other, you know? Back in the day, you think of all the old fighters, they fight hundreds of times against each other. Didn't matter. And if they were fighting someone else, they would help each other just to get another shot to fight them again. So, you know, they say boxing's a lonely man's sport, but it's only as lonely as you make it, you know?
Yeah, I like that, man. That's, I mean, that's something we wanted to get into, because I feel like we just said, I think old boxing.
Yeah.
Boxing now is kind of weird from my perspective. You would know a lot more about what's going on, but I just know when someone's like you said, I'll scroll and I'm seeing usually like a training footage of Mike or someone talking about Jake Paul or something, and like to me, them being the biggest or like the most talked about at the moment is weird to me, because I'm like, I know who you are separate. I mean, Mike's different. Mike is a legend, right? But like Jake Paul, I'm sort of like, I remember him from like the Disney Channel, right? Like, to me, I'm like thinking like, it's weird that if I look up boxing, that's the stuff that's coming up to me. Or like KSI, I remember he used to be like a YouTuber, and then he got into it. Like, there's nothing wrong with these guys doing it, but as you said, social media has kind of allowed people who aren't maybe necessarily the best fighters to be the most popular.
It gives one thing with social media as well when it comes to boxing. Like, obviously, my knowledge isn't so much with other things. It's from a boxing point of view. It gives everyone a voice, and most people who shouldn't be saying something are the ones that say something, you know. But you're always going to have your hecklers, you're always going to have your haters, you're going to have people who just want to say something for the sake of it. Even some fighters are really bad at doing it as well. Someone will lose a fight or do something and then they just jump straight on, you know. And me, myself, I'm not that kind of person, you know. I don't need to do that. If I've got anything to say, I'll say it in person, you know. But
yeah, it's like popular to,
it's popular for people to voice their thing and to say it. And like you just said, you know, you go on social media and it's Jake Paul and like you said, Mike, obviously a legend, everything like that. But it's with those YouTubers and all these people like KSI to jump in the ring, like Mike Tyson said it perfectly on his own podcast as well, which was, you know, it brings newer eyes to the sport. And from a revenue point, it's great. But now I'm having conversations with like kids at youth centers that I work with and people that I've met through other boxing clubs saying, you know, hyping up Jake Paul and hyping these people up. Not saying that they don't work hard, like KSI, Jake Paul, Logan, any of these guys. I'm not saying they don't work hard. They train hard, they work hard, they do what they do good. That's great. But to be real fighters, it's about, you know, sacrificing everything else to pursue one thing, you know, and that's holding yourself in a class as a fighter, where Jake has got money galore from all the Disney, all the stuff. Him and Logan, they're raking it in. They're raking it in. So even with this fight with him and Mike, it's another way of making a circus for people to buy or watch the fight and do that to be relevant and to be able to watch. And you got to think about how much they're both getting paid for it. You know, went from being an exhibition to now it's a real fight, and all the people are blowing up about it. It's just all in the interviews, in the news, everything like that. It's just the way the world is right now. And you get people. What annoys me is you get guys who are current world champions like that, or like the female fighters, Amanda Serrano. She fights on Jake Paul's undercard. Me being the pure boxing person I am, it should be the other way around. You know, Jake shouldn't be the main event. It should be her, you know, regardless male or female. And even when it comes to other people, there's the people who are in the top 10 in the world fighting on his undercard getting, what, not even 50 grand, maybe less. And he's getting, what, 100 mil, whatever, however much he's getting for the fight. And that's not just on purse. That's on what he's making with sponsors getting involved, all the other stuff and all that. So that's got to be close to like 100, 150 mil there, you know?
This is where I was going to go with it next, because there's everything with what you're saying and stuff like that, man. Like, I don't even have to be, I don't actually know who the fighter is that you mentioned, the female fighter. So I don't actually know, but like even hearing it just makes sense even from my perspective. I'm like, yeah, she's probably been fighting a lot longer, and obviously she's, you know, it's a fighter versus someone who's, like you said, almost doing it as like a part-time thing.
Yeah.
I'm curious what you think about people's opinion on it, right? Because Jake's an interesting one in the sense that he's been winning fights, right?
Yeah.
But he was even winning fights. He won a couple of fights against people where I was like, I'd followed a little bit of the people he was fighting, or I'd kind of watched fights afterwards and went, fuck, this guy's a bit of a machine. Like,
yeah.
Is it Tyson Woodley that I'm thinking of?
Oh, Tyron Woodley.
Tyron Woodley. There we go. So I'm not, you know, pure into fighting. So for me, I found it kind of surprising, right? And then I spoke to people who, I've got a couple of mates who are really into it. And their response was like, yeah, man, I didn't see that happening either. And so some of the, I guess, opinions I have on it, and like something I'm really curious about is like a big perspective that people are coming from is these fights are, and we know this is big with boxing, these fights are rigged, or, you know, if this guy wins, people are saying it about Tyson and Jake, you know, if Jake wins this one, it has to be rigged. There's no way it isn't rigged. I'm curious about that sort of thing because I'm like, I guess to me, that could happen. Why wouldn't it happen at that level? Do you think that happens? It
definitely does happen.
Yeah.
There's a lot of circumstances here in Australia and even around the world where boxing has numerously been rigged and things have happened that weren't meant to happen. And again, circus, you know, ways to get butts on seats, you know, pay-per-view rights. Things make sense. When money makes sense, you know, like, and money talks. So,
but why not? But why do you think they don't? Why? Because you're still going to have a fight, right?
Still going to have a fight regardless. And that's what I'm saying. Like Logan and Jake, or even like any of these YouTubers like KSI as well. Like KSI, like they show that they have trained and they have good ability. They can defend themselves 100% and they can actually fight. But you got to think about, have they actually, any of them ever been in a hard fight? Or in a fight where it's like, wow, this is actually going to be tested. Now, Tyron Woodley, he was a phenomenal UFC fighter, but years prior, in a perfect world, Jake wouldn't have gone anywhere near Tyron Woodley when he was at his best. Same with how many other guys. He's fighting early fights against guys who are great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighters, but can't stand up, you know? So he's what it is it's how they're making the revenue, how they're making the money, but on people who are going to talk shit or they're going to talk good. So people also always do obviously they do the tailor tape, you know, like, oh, he's good at this, he's bad at this, or he's good at this, you know, he's good at this. They map it out as they do, but no one knows until it actually happens. So looking at from them, they've built Jake the right way. So they gave Jake a hard fight against Tommy Fury. Now, Tommy Fury can box and he can fight and he comes from a great lineage of fighters like obviously Tyson Fury. Look at his fight coming up in Saudi Arabia on 18th of May. But at the same time, Tommy's also an influencer. He's also Love Island. He's also everything like that. So he's got different entities in different places as well. So
you think that fight was kosher? Just on a personal?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
It's hard to look at that one because Tommy's had built up the right way as well. He's been built up again. Like there was someone on his record that 120 losses and 3 wins or 5 wins or something like that, you know. But that's, at the end of the day, any professional fighter, you always got to start somewhere. And you always got to think there's some fighters I know that from firsthand, they've lost their first 3 fights, professional fights, went on to win great titles and become world ranked and great fighters, but they needed those little fights to start them off. That kind of set them in motion. You know, some people are the other way around. There's other guys who, go for a massive winning streak, 10 fights, 10 wins, 9 knockouts, who knows? And then they get up against someone who can actually test them. And you either see where if they've actually been training hard, if they actually have the ability, they have the mental strength, there's a lot of different factors that will play into that person's how they handle things. And it all depends on this. You know, the mind's the most important thing in the ring. Stuff, the physical training, everything like that. Mentally, physically, and also the natural ability you can bring in the ring. Those are 3 main factors. You know, it's not 90 to 95% mental than it is physical. The other 5 to 10% is all physical. You know, the training's the hard part. The fight's the easy bit. You get a lot of guys who will do the easy bit outside of the ring and then get in there thinking it's going to be easy anyways. So especially when they're catered to and koshered to, they'll usually get in the ring thinking, oh, well, I'm the man. Doesn't matter. I'm going in here. My team's looking after me. My management's looking after me. You know, we're cherry picking here. So not saying that Jake's not training hard, or any of these guys aren't, like KSI aren't training hard, but they're molded, if you know what I'm saying. You know, they're molded. It's for a purpose. You know, how much money they can make from the night, how much viewers can they get there, how many pay-per-view people can they get watching the fight at home. Like, there's lots of different reasons why. And even Tyron Woodley was beyond his time. So did he legitimately lock Tyron Woodley out? Probably. But did Tyron Woodley let him set the shots up because he wasn't offering much? Who knows as well? These are questions no one will ever know. Boxing's one of those funny things where people get hit, people can do stuff, and then all of a sudden they're not there. It's done. No one knows. And it's like, wow, okay. Like, and people can have all hype up someone just for it to go the other way. And then boxing fans are ruthless as well. Boxing fans will jump from one guy to another just off something or a loss happening. Happens all the time.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. I guess I'd be curious into what you think about this one, because I feel like having you explain it the way you have has really helped me understand it. Now I'm kind of going like, I can see what you mean about Jake and the way they kind of structured his career and who he was fighting. And that was a big thing a lot of people say anyway, right? Yeah. He's not fighting boxers.
He's not fighting real fighters.
Well, Tommy was like the
only real fighter he's fought. And then he goes off saying that he fought that other pro fighter who he knocked out as well. I had never heard of him. But at the same time, not saying that the guy wasn't a good fighter, but was his experience there? Was he able to fight? No one knows.
Yeah.
No one knows. He's a body for Jake to fight, you know, and like obviously looking at what they're trying to do to mold him and to build him, it is for show. It is for thing, you know, like you get all these people who get missed out. Like, I'm very big on bringing up the Perth names because Perth always does get left behind, you know, like when it comes to any sort of sport, you know, like I've got friends all in the boxing world that all get left, like that haven't been mentioned or haven't been spoken about because over East is more boxing, like Queensland, Brisbane, Sydney, they all get names constantly. And the boxing scene's a lot more broader over there and there's a lot more media around there surrounding the boxing. But we've got numerous world champions that currently live here or that have lived in Perth and trained in Perth and been here for many years.
Yeah, I think that's something maybe I'll come to learn about and understand more. That's a big world to get involved in. I guess to leave that one where it is, what do you think is going to happen with Paul and Mike?
Oh, again, it's went from an exhibition to a pro fight, and Mike being Mike, I love Mike. I hope he can win. I hope he can go out there and perform well. I'd absolutely break my heart to see him lose. But at the same time, Mike comes from a very different circumstance where he was the youngest heavyweight champion in the world. He's been in there with killers, guys that would absolutely step on Jake. Back in Tyson's prime day, Tyson would have ate him and spat him straight out. But this isn't back then. Tyson's older. He's obviously training hard. He's got all the right supplements, all the right stuff behind him that's helping him go through the way that he is. And he's looking amazing. But, Father Time doesn't age. We do. So will Tyson be the same? No. But will he offer great ferociousness and be the Tyson that we once maybe saw? No, but he'll bring what he can to the fight. Jake, he's got youth. He's got, mainly youth. And he wouldn't have boxing experience because Tyson's got miles ahead of boxing experience compared to Jake. But Jake's got the youth. He's got the physical attributes. He's not older. He's not getting fragile in his age or anything like that. Jake's got many, many years to go. So he probably could be a little bit faster as well, maybe, depending on how his body's holding up himself. But Jake's not an overly big guy. Tyson, you got to think Tyson's short, but Tyson he's a wide set guy, and he's freakishly strong. I don't care what anyone says about power when it comes to that. Even though Tyson's older, power doesn't age. Power doesn't leave. Everything else slows down. Eyes, feet, reflexes, timing. That stuff will slow down as you get older. But power doesn't change. Especially the way Tyson could punch. It's freakish. There's no way that would age.
Do you think there's a genuine?
Aren't they fighting in 14-ounce gloves?
I did see a video on that.
Yeah.
I'm not too familiar with the difference. But
if they're fighting in 14-ounce gloves, that's basically to save Jake. And I could see it saving Tyson in a sense because if there's no headgears, anything like that, Tyson is a bit older. Yeah, got to think about accumulation of shots to the head. And, usually when you get older, you can't wear punches the same as you used to when you're in your 20s and 30s.
So what do they normally fight in?
Well, heavyweight fights from a certain weight and up, it's usually 10-ounce gloves. So to any heavyweight, they're tiny. They're nothing shots. It's like an oven mitt on your hand pretty much, And then me, if I'm fighting, there's people from welter and lower and I fight at super feather. So I fight in 8-ounce gloves. They're even tinier. So nothing as small as a UFC glove, but enough for you to let go on and trust me, you'll feel it. It's like a brick hitting you in the face. So 14-ounce gloves. There's the the AFL guys who fought on my undercard for my last fight. I think they fought in 14s they might have fought in 18s. So I think
took them bigger.
Yeah. So the biggest ones you can probably get, I think, are 22-ounce gloves. And they're massive. They're like a widescreen TV on your face. So they cover one glove will cover your whole face.
And so why do they do that?
Safety.
Just so you're not getting as much
punishment. As much punishment and not as much thing. Where in a real fight glove, they're built different. They're not like a training glove where you would go to the gym and you can buy a glove, 10, 12-ounce glove and get away on the bag and you can use them for a couple of years, how many years before they start to deteriorate and kind of go forward thing. Usually fight gloves last, they say 100 rounds max, but one fight, you can't use them again. It's illegal to use the same fight gloves you fought in a fight in prior a couple of months later because once you fight in them, the padding and the stuff gets molded and switched and different and it pretty much gets punched in, as they say. So if I wear a pair of gloves, so if I fought in the same gloves I fought in my last fight, like in the next couple of months, that'd be illegal. I'd get in trouble for that. So I've got to get a brand new set of gloves that have never been worn, never been touched, still in the package. And I've got to show the commission at the fights or before the fight. And then they give me the all clear. Those are your fight gloves. Those are his fight gloves. Cool. Done. And then on the night of the fight, I can open them then and I'll put them on and stuff.
And so what do we, what does that run in you? Like how expensive are these gloves?
Oh, depends on what brand you're getting. So I'm sponsored by Everlast. So the gloves I fought in my last fight, which were phenomenal gloves. They were phenomenal. I love them because they're what you call puncher's gloves. So they're made and manufactured in Mexico. So puncher's gloves are made of foam and horsehair. So going back to old fighters, old fighters used to just strictly fight in horsehair. So my grandfather used to fight in horsehair gloves years ago. And you look at pure horsehair gloves, the leather's so rough and ragged, and the inside of them, you can hear the horsehair bending and moving around in there. So they've got the same implement, but in a safer way, I guess. But a puncher's glove is horsehair and foam, and they pretty much either have less absorption of the shot when you hit someone, so it's probably worse on your hands if you've got weak hands. And then they've got the other version of a puncher's glove, which is called the orthopedic version. So people who have frail hands, weak hands, they'll usually put a softer glove on to protect their hands.
I'm learning so much. Was not aware there was so much just to the gloves.
There is, yeah. Well, there's a lot of people who like to, even at fights, you both have your set, they have their set. You look at them. If you're not happy with their pair of gloves, you could say, I'm not happy with them. They've got to rush around to find another set that you can just say, again, I'm not happy with those ones either. So,
have you had that happen to you?
Yeah, I've had it happen. Actually, I fought a fight once where the commission argued with me and my coach for maybe 2.5 hours about they gave me the wrong size gloves. I still fought in them as well because they kept arguing with me. We couldn't argue with the commission. But we went 3 times back and forth in the space of an hour and a half. And they gave me one glove that was an 8-ounce glove, and they gave me another glove that was a 10. So I fought in two different sizes. And I didn't know what the problem was. I said, no, they're 2 different sizes. Look at them. And the commission goes, no, those are the gloves that they've been given to you. I said, well, I can't fight in those. And they're like, oh, no, these are the ones that are given to you. Took them away, come straight back. No, these are yours. I said, no, I can't fight in them. One's bigger than the other. That's not fair. I said, what about his gloves? What's he fighting in? They wouldn't tell me what he was fighting in. And I was like,
and that's not allowed?
That's not allowed. But they were like, oh, no, his was all right. You know, they're no different to yours. I said, oh, so what, he's fighting in one bigger than the other as well? I said, how silly is that? So we were arguing back and forth. At the end of the day, I had to just wear them. So I was like, whatever. Ended up wearing them, had to put them on. And, still went in there and fought. But I think about how ridiculous that is. But then when you go to the higher level, like much higher level, you're getting the big mix of it, you get in trouble.
Yeah, I was
you
going
get
to say.
in big trouble, yeah.
Well, we'll get into a little bit more about you. You'd mentioned where you wanted to go.
Yeah.
Like where you want to be, right? Because to me, I'm still understanding this, right? I'm still like, oh, wow, okay, it's not like Rocky.
No, it's a lot more to it. I wish it was like Rocky. It'd be so much simpler.
It
Jeez.
seems more simple, doesn't it, in the movies, which we'll get into that part of it. But I'm curious about, with where you're at now, where's the end goal? What's the big time for you?
Big time for me is, like where I want to be and where I've manifested since I was 14 years old would be not only a world champion, but, like I think about all the things I want to achieve at the same time, winning world title is your pinnacle, but you get a lot of people who win world titles and that's their dream, that's their goal. That's what every professional boxer wants to be and become. And then they ease off the reins. They don't, they're not as hungry, they're not as determined as they once were. So I've got my own self, because I'm my biggest critic and I'm the hardest person on myself. That's just how I am. Like to be able to be the best, you got to fight the best. You got to be able to work harder than everybody else. You got to be up at 3, 4 in the morning because, it's an edge on top of someone else. You got to so I'm training 2-3 times a day, every day. And I'll do that till the day I die. Like it's just embedded in me. And even when, the times where you want to indulge, have a good time, that's a good. But there's a firm line of, hey, this is all relevant right now, but where's the future going to take me? What's the next 5 years look like, And
so you don't drink?
No, I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do anything, Give me a dance floor and a bottle of water or thirst trap and I'll dance all night. So that's my biggest thing. So I come from a musical family, like dancing, singing is very, very big. And you can't get me away from a dance floor. I've done that before I could walk. But then fighting's the same thing. So I always got torn between the two. Do I want to dance or do I want to fight? And I chose fighting because I can do both. So very early in my career as well, I was a male stripper while fighting at the same time. So probably 4 or 5 of my professional fights, making up through the ranks. I was out on a Saturday night at Northbridge, different places, and I was stripping as well. So that's sacrifices and things that I had to do to make money and do stuff. And I've laboured, I've concreted, I've tyre fitted, I've done so many different other avenues of things. I learned how to paint and paint houses. I'm never going to do that again, but to make the dream and to focus on my dream, I did that.
And you now box for a living, right? This is your job.
Yeah, now it is my job, and I'm very grateful to be where I'm at. And with the future and what I want to achieve, not only do I want to become world champion, but I want to be what you would call, another thing for you to learn as well, is when you win more than one world title, you call it becoming unified. So if you hold more than one world title, so say I hold, for instance, I hold one WBC belt, but then there's another guy who's in the division as well who has an IBF. We will fight. It will be a unification fight. If I win that, I win my one again, and I take his off him. So he's not a world champion anymore. I'm a 2-time unified world champion at that weight division. And then say I fight all the other belts, all the other guys for their belts. I get all 4 or 5. I'm undisputed. So that's the pinnacle, even further past what you would be if you were just a world champion. Now, winning a world title is huge, but that's even bigger. So you look at who I was with today, George Kambosos. He's unified the lightweight division. So it went from Lomachenko unifying lightweight, then Lopez beat him for all the titles, and then George went to New York and beat him for all the titles. So that's one of the biggest things that happen in Australian boxing. For George Kambosos to go to America, win all the world titles, all 4 of the belts, and become Ring Magazine as well. So the Ring Magazine belt's probably the most important because it's the one that looks like the Rocky belt. So it got red, white, and blue. It's like kind of, that American looking thing and all that sort of stuff. So the Ring Magazine to me is one of the most important ones because when you win all the world titles and become undisputed or unified, the Ring Magazine identifies who's the number 1 in the division in the world. So George got one of them. He was considered number 1 because he was undisputed. Another friend of mine who's part family as well, Jai Opataya, he was the IBF Cruiserweight World Champion. He got the Ring Magazine as well because he was considered the number 1 in the Cruiserweight division. So that one kind of sections you out from everybody else in a way, if you know what I mean. And then that's something I want to do for myself. So I look at George, I look at Jai, I look at these people. Like I want to be, not only leave a mark in Australian boxing, but world boxing. And not just for me, but for my 2 sons. Like to be able to show them that they can chase their dreams, no matter what, to never give up. I don't want them to be in a place where they're working a job that they're very unhappy in life with, like that they're stuck and feel like they can't go anywhere and that they can't follow their aspirations of what they want to do. I want them to feel that they can achieve greatness in their lives as well, and I want to be almost an example in that sort of way that I'm going to back them just as my family and my friends have backed me. People when they told me, oh, you can't do that and everything like that. Like I used to preach to people at high school, I'm leaving school, I'm going to become world champion, and everyone just laughed at me. And I'm not a world champion yet, but I'm on my way there, and I'm doing it. I'm in the mix of it, which I'm really, really lucky to be and very privileged to be as well. But I want the same for my kids. So, yeah, world champion, be undisputed, even if it means I've got to move up a weight division, do the same in another weight division, multi-time world champion to, divisional world champion and stuff. That's where I want to be before I retire. And then I want to open up a little gym where I can train all the young fighters and help them out as well.
You mentioned you did some youth work before.
Yeah.
So you volunteer there.
Yeah. So years ago, I used to work at or not work, but I used to help out now and then at Coburn Youth Centre and train some of the younger kids in the youth. Just take them through some boxing classes and do some stuff there. There's some of the kids I've had the privilege of working with down here in Mandurah as well, and I've done a bit of work with them. A couple of young kids that go to the same high school that I used to go to, they go train at a local gym where I first started. So I will go down there and I train now and then and I'll show them things. I'll help them out. I'll hold pads sometimes. And it's good. I love being around people. I'm very much, obviously social battery does run out now and then. You got to do what's best for yourself. But I know my time. I know my thing where, I need a bit of time to myself or time where I just want to relax. But I'm very much a social person. I like to be out and about and I like to be amongst people. I love to help. I'm very much on, paying it forward, being able to be there, be with them, helping out, and I don't want anything back. It's no money. That doesn't interest me. Being able to see people happy and see people learn and get an experience out of that is a lot more beneficial than any money could buy.
I did. Yeah. Well, I did see you did kids parties as well. Did you?
Yeah, so I was Spider-Man on the weekend.
Yeah.
I was Spider-Man yesterday. It was yesterday. Wow. Yeah. So that's a friend of mine, obviously through the stripping. So he's got a bridge off from that, and it's with Kids Party Heroes. So they do Transformers, they do the Avengers, everything like that. So it's a weird thing to go from taking your clothes off to then dressing up as a superhero. We've done it many times. Very funny stories of that. But going from in that, so I had to go to the Perth Zoo yesterday, and I had to go dress up as Spider-Man for an hour. So it was me, Captain America, the Hulk, Black Widow, Iron Man, and myself, and had to come out, and I think there was maybe 400 to close to 500 kids there. It was packed out, absolutely packed out. I actually had never seen the zoo that busy, to be fair. But we did our own Avengers show, come out, and we just took photos of all the kids. I love it because you get to see how happy these kids get, because they're only young. Like my eldest isn't old enough to really soak in just yet on things. He's there, but I don't think he'd really realize who these people are or have a real proper interest. He loves Paw Patrol and Bluey now.
Yeah.
So until he figures out Spider-Man, cool, sweet, because I'm Spider-Man. But
do you like Spider-Man?
Oh yeah, who doesn't like Spider-Man?
Oh man, I mean, yeah, I'm with you. I love Spider. Who's Spider-Man to you though?
Oh, are you saying which Spider-Man's thing to me?
Yeah.
Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man.
I know, isn't it funny? He's like a 25-year-old man, but he's still Spider-Man.
He's still Spider-Man.
He's the most unrealistic one too. Tom definitely fits the role so much better physically.
Yeah,
but I still just always
Tobey Maguire's I still remember having all 3 Spider-Man DVDs at home as a kid.
Yeah,
watching them day in and day out.
Yeah, 100%.
They're the best. Yeah,
the newest one was wicked to see them all in it together.
I still haven't seen it.
Oh man, you've got to watch that.
No, I don't get enough time. I'm constantly training and stuff, so I don't get enough time to really go thing. I think we went to me and my partner went to the movies the other day, and we saw something. I don't even know what we saw. I can't remember what we saw. That's great.
Well, I was going to ask because we all love to indulge in a bit of escapism, and this is probably where I think a lot of people get like warped perceptions about things. Because, for instance, an example, there was a movie that came out, Never Back Down, when I was younger. And I remember it would put people in this weird, like, people would be halfway through the movie and you were like, because you were like fucking 12, you were like, I want to be a UFC fighter.
Yeah.
I can live this lifestyle.
I can live this lifestyle and do this stuff.
Yeah. That music montage, I could get through that. Like, we don't, you don't see any of the quiet, awkward, gyms and, but boxing movies. Is there like a boxing movie all time for you? Because mine's probably an unrealistic one.
Wouldn't say unrealistic. So what's your favourite one?
It's not unrealistic. It's just it wouldn't be. I like Southpaw.
Perfect. Southpaw is a great movie, but it's not unrealistic, really.
Oh, just you know what I mean? Maybe not conventional boxing.
No. Well, even when it comes to that, like the conventional boxing side of it and everything like that, they've had the right people to come and be involved in that. You use the same example with that movie that Hugh Jackman was in, that with robot fighting, whatever that is.
Real Steel, yeah.
Real Steel. That had my favourite fighter of all time, Sugar Ray Leonard. He was there helping with the production of that because they needed someone who knew boxing. So Hugh Jackman really doesn't know boxing, but Leonard came in to help and show things and do stuff like that. Like you need people and voices and different people to do that. So we've Southpaw as well. They would have had great boxing minds in there. What they always do with boxing movies, well, they add real professional fighters in there. So do you still remember the part in Southpaw where he spars for the first time with the other coach? His wife's already died, everything like that.
Yeah.
And the guy's running around him and he's like, oh, he's hitting me. He's moving around like a mosquito. So that guy he spars is actually, if I'm not mistaken, a 2-time world champion who actually got knocked out by Floyd Mayweather.
Okay.
His name's Victor Ortiz. So Victor Ortiz, at that time when they were making that movie, was on his comeback trail of coming back into the fight and all that sort of stuff. But he's retired now. But at that time, he was still very much amongst the boxing world.
Yeah, I have noticed they've done that with a few. Like sometimes when they do UFC movies and that they do
They'll
it too.
bring fighters in. Like, well, look at Roadhouse. They brought Conor McGregor in, but still.
I still haven't watched that.
I haven't seen it either, but I've had mixed emotions. People have told me mixed emotions about that. But even like with the Rocky 2 movie, so Rocky 2, they had Roberto Duran, same era as Sugar Ray Leonard. They had Roberto Duran in there sparring Rocky, making Rocky look silly. And Roberto Duran's arguably one of the best lightweights of all time, if not. I agree. I think he is, but he's a renowned, boxing historian. Like you got to add these different people in there. But from a boxing movie, Southpaw's up there with it. I'm trying to think of all the boxing movies. To be honest, I haven't really had a chance to watch boxing movies. I more study and watch fights in a sense.
Yeah.
I love dance movies. It takes me back to like Step Up and Stomp the Yard and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, give us your best dance movie. Might be Stomp the Yard, probably.
Stomp the Yard's up there. They killed Chris Brown straight up, but
yeah, I know. Best dancer in the movie.
And they killed him straight away. Why not?
Oh, it sucks.
It sucks, but why not?
Yeah.
But okay, so if I'm thinking boxing,
there was a movie, if you haven't seen, called Bleed for This.
Bleed for This. That's about Vinny Pazienza.
That's it. Yeah.
That's actually a really good movie.
Yeah, Miles Teller was great in that. And because I didn't know the story of that guy or anything, but I mean, considering what he was, what was happening,
man.
So that's a true story.
That's a true story. Yeah. So so Roberto Duran fought Vinny Pazienza years later, but Roberto Duran retired after that. But Pazienza, he was a wild cat. He was a wild guy, and to go from the neck breaking and the car crash and everything like that to still fight on after that was a shock, because there was even the thing, because as you can tell, I'm a bit of a boxing historian as well. Roy Jones Jr. fought Mike Tyson, exhibition, everything like that. So Roy back in the day was a freak of nature as well. But Roy fought Pazienza, and this was at super middleweight. So this was like the time after the neck brace or the neck stuff, and like this, they're all worried about him, and then he went on to win against Roberto Duran and do all this stuff, and they're like, wow, Pazienza's back, and he's fighting heavier because he's put on the muscle from doing all the weights. He fought at super middle. Roy was a beast at super middleweight, and when they got in for that fight, Roy even said, he goes, if I hit him too hard, I'm worried I'm going to hurt him, or like, I'm going to end up breaking his neck again or something. And Roy won. Roy stopped him and really put a beating on Pazienza. But Pazienza, tough as nails. Like he didn't go down without a real fight. And even Roy was putting his arms out to the ref like, you going to stop it or what? And he just went to town. He went to town, and regardless, a fight's a fight. We're paid, or we're there to be there. So, like fighters will fight. And one thing fighters will never do is know when to give up. Fighters will never know when to give up.
It's what makes you a good fighter, I suppose. Yes and no, but it's up to your corner. Like, so that's another thing that happens a lot. And people die in the ring. We're not baking cakes. We're not here to fuck spiders. So well, they die afterwards, right? Sometimes the brain.
Yeah, there's the brain thing afterwards. They die in there. They get serious injury, everything like that. Because you got to think accumulation of the head, and people don't realize how much we've cutting weight and doing stuff as well. Dehydration of the body, dehydration of the brain. And you're getting hit in the head, the brain's just bouncing around like a pinball machine. Do you worry about that? You got kids, you got a family. What makes you still do it? I couldn't picture my life without it. And if I was to, touch wood, if I was to ever get seriously hurt and everything from boxing, it's my own decision. I know my family, I know my partner, I know my sons, they're still very young, they don't fully understand, but at the end of the day, I'll make the sacrifice for myself, not only because I love it, but because of what boxing will bring me in the future for me and for them, So, and what I tell everybody as well, and what people don't maybe realize at a young age, is that, you can love boxing all you want. You can love it to bits, but boxing will never love you back, regardless, When it comes to that, in the really breaking that down, is that you can be on top of the world at 1 minute, and then all it takes is one thing to switch that all up on its head, and you'll be completely on the other end of that, and no one will care. No one will give two shits who you are, what's going on. You can have a serious injury in that, and people are like, oh yeah, that's really sad, that's tragic. But who's fighting now? Completely forget about you. So at the end of the day, boxing will never love me back, but I will love boxing till the day I die. But at the same time, I've got my purpose and what I want to be. I've got no plan B. So at the end of the day, like I said, I'll touch wood again for the second time. I make sure that I tick every box in my arsenal and in my ability and my work ethic to make sure I'm the best version of myself every day, every single day. And that's because of what I want to achieve, what I want to do, but also for safety as well. Like, I know for a fact that if I get to an age later in life and I'm not met where I want to be, or I haven't achieved what I wanted to, I've got to be the man to myself to be able to be like, I've got to hang it up. I've got to stop. But a lot of people either give it up too early and always wonder in their mind, I could come back. I could do stuff. It's the comeback that is one of the hardest things to do. And then there's people who leave it too late and they end up getting hurt bad, and families worry about them. They end up getting brain damage. Things happen, and it's a scare. It's a worry then. So I take that on board every day. And every day I spar, every day I fight, every day I do stuff. Even from the last fight I got cut open by a headbutt on the side of my head, but that was accidental. The fight I had prior to that, I got cut open twice from 2 headbutts. So still to this day, I've never been opened up by someone punching me in the face if they land a punch, but I've been opened up 3 times with a headbutt now. So unfortunately, it's boxing. I can't sit here and complain about it. And at the end of the day, we're there fighting. So things happen, but.
Well, a lot of the stuff that you're kind of because that's hard, right? We're talking about hard stuff.
Yeah.
We're talking about endurance, getting through those fights. Like you said, there's a huge mental aspect.
Yep.
I'm curious. My question to me is, everyone has a different hard, right? And a lot of your passion behind it paints a pretty big picture of what you're willing to do.
Yeah.
So my question is, what's the hardest part of your day? What, to you, what's hard to you? Because a lot of what you're doing, it's all hard to other people.
Yeah. It's all your perception on hard, I guess, like I'd say the hardest thing for me, coming from a personal point, is not being able to have my sons with me as much as I'd love to, with the training, with the travel, we've done certain things, also from personal stuff, like me and my ex-partner aren't together. But with certain aspects, I'd love to have them with the gym at me at some times. I'd love to have them at times where I fought out of state and fought somewhere else. And I'd love to have them there ringside to be able to witness and see what I'm doing, not for me, but for us as a group, as a family, and it breaks my heart to be able to not have them there. But I also know from a safety point, one's very young, the other one's 2. So 1-year-old and an almost 3-year-old probably isn't a safe setting for a kid to see his dad fight. And if a headbutt happens again or something like that, they don't understand that. They just see their dad in a ring fighting. The older generation, like my dad and people like that, they were all around the boxing. There was a different era, it was a different time. But you got to think about the way the world works now and things like that. It's not good, probably not good for kids to see that at such a young age. When my son gets to about 5 or 6, different story. When they both get to that age. But they've got to be able to have some sort of understanding behind it. That'd probably be the hardest thing. Getting up every day and not being able to really have them there amongst my journey in order for myself and for them, and for what's to come for them in the future. When I do retire and when I've done my part and done my stuff, and then they can turn to me and say, Dad, I really want to, I want to box, or I want to dance, or I want to be the best entrepreneur in the world. I want to be whatever they want to be, and they can turn to me and say, I want to do this, but I'm afraid, or I'm scared, or I'm worried, I'm anxious, and I can give them all the knowledge I can and all the physical support I can. But I wish they could be there for my part, because there's times I'll sit there and I'll be my own thoughts, and I'll be like, I'd love to just be able to have my kids with me to be able to show them that this is for you guys as well. This is for you. But yeah, I'd say that's the hardest thing.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
Would you say that you learnt a lot of that from, you said that your father and that were around it. You mentioned before that your grandfather boxed.
Yeah. So I've got my dad, my dad's older brother. He fought but never, he boxed but never fought. It was my dad that ended up fighting. And then their dad, my grandfather, who fought, he was in the top 10 light middleweights in Australia. I think about 200 to 300 fights in total, but that's also counting tent boxing, because part of the heritage is, travellers. So part of that gypsy-like world of tent fighting, where it's bare knuckle or it's boxing gloves. So my grandfather fought in tent fights and professional fights as well. And then I've got both my uncles and their father as well. So Noel and Ricky Thornbury, and then their father Trevor Thornbury. So that's where the lineage comes from. So you got the Thornburys and you got the McIvers. So I'm really a McIver, but when I moved here from Sydney, my mum, we changed our last name to England, which is her last name. And that's not out of anything different. At the end of the day, my dad and my mum were separated. They didn't really get on with that, but it was a different time for them because they were traveling around in a caravan at the 10 fights, watching the fights, doing all this sort of stuff. So my dad and my dad's older brother were never pushed into it, but it kind of was just part of the family. You fight. Me, I had the choice. I got given the choice. And same thing enough, boxing found me. So, I definitely made that choice, and I made the right one, that's for sure. So,
yeah. Well, when did you come over from Sydney?
When I was 11 years old.
And you mentioned before, so did you actually grow up in Mount Druitt?
No, so like we were all around there. So we came from Penrith, but Mount Druitt's, when I got a bit older, I spent a bit of time in Mount Druitt. And it's definitely when you come from the Penrith area, like I love Penrith as well. Go the Panthers, go my Panthers as well. But Penrith area, where do we live before we moved here? We're living in Glenmore Park, so that's a suburb out that way, and that's not too bad. It's all right. But then as you get into the Penrith area, you just see the roughness, and it's like, wow,
How did you handle that with the boxing side of things?
Well, at that time, I wasn't even boxing. So, I didn't start actually fighting and boxing until I was about 14 years old. So, I loved combat sports and dance and everything like that. I was such a wide spread of things, and I loved being outside as well. I was such an outdoor kid, but I was actually quite a real shy kid as well. I used to really keep to myself. And then got to about 14 years old, living here in Perth for how many odd years. And then my stepdad took the Foxtel card, because times would come home from school and me and my sister would just watch TV. So he come back from FIFO work, took the Foxtel card out and goes, you and your sister need to make a decision on what you guys want to achieve, what you guys want to do. Aspiration, hobby, job, chase something that you guys are wanting to chase, like a dream or something. So I remember that same week I went on a school camp, and to this day it's the only school camp I've ever been on as well. And I remember I went away for 3-4 days, and I was thinking to myself, what do I want to do? And I was like, I love dance, I love music, but I also love to fight. And I'd watch everybody. I watched Bruce Lee to all the boxing people, everything like that religiously. And I come back and I was like, I want to box. Not even very next day, went to my first boxing class. And it wasn't even a boxing class, it was a kickboxing class, and I didn't enjoy it. It was just a circuit kickboxing class, and I was just like, I don't know if this is for me. It doesn't really sit well trying to kick someone. And then it was a couple of days later, went to the very first boxing class I did, and that was a sparring class. So I just jumped straight into sparring. I had no real knowledge other than what I had seen, what I'd watched, and everything like that. And I jumped in there and I sparred a guy, and he teed me up. Absolutely teed me up. And I was just this young 14-year-old kid, and this guy's in his mid-20s bashing a 14-year-old. And I was just like, wow. But I loved it. And then an older guy who is a good friend of mine, he actually bashed him for me straight after. And he come up to me, he tapped me on the shoulder. He goes, I got him back for you, mate. I was like, oh, thanks, no worries. And then I jumped in actually sparred the coach at the time that I actually had my amateur career with. And he jumped in there and sparred him for 2-3 rounds, and just walking through it, doing stuff, and everything just came really natural, really, really natural. And then he jumped out of the ring and he said to my stepdad, he goes, how long has he been training for? He goes, oh, this is really his first time. And he goes, I'll take him straight under my wing. I'll take him straight at fight under me. I'll get him in a fight in 8 weeks. And that was the start of it. So I turned 15 around that 8-week time. And I ended up having my first amateur fight 8 weeks later.
Wow.
Yeah. So fast, it was a pretty fast turnaround, but I fell in love with it there and there. Like as soon as I went into a proper boxing gym as well, like I was just in love straight away. It was nothing beats an atmosphere of an old school gym, or like just a gym in general, bags hanging up, everything like that. You see everybody training, see everybody working and stuff. And it's got that, I don't know, it's not a smell because that's weird. It's not a weird smell. It's more like,
I think it might be a smell. I do know what you're talking about.
I don't know. Like, like you go to a gym, or like from your perspective as well, you see like powerlifting and all that sort of stuff as well. And it a smell or a sort of feel to it. It's got a weird feel to it, and it almost feels homey.
Yeah,
in a way.
The place I like to train is a dump.
Yeah, but
I love that.
But wherever you build diamonds in places like that, it's where the real work happens, like you look at all the old school boxing stuff and it's a dingy old gym, the wallpaper's fallen off the wall, all these old posters are sticking up everywhere, things are falling apart, but it's the best work. It's where the best work happens, One day when I retire and everything like that, I'd love to have an old school style gym, just a ring in the middle or a ring in the side, and then just bags hanging around, and they all have that old feel. Doesn't matter if it's all tattered and everything like that. We'll just tape it, duct tape the shit out of it. I love that. Oh, I love it. It's so cool.
Not a lot of things duct tape can't fix. That's what it's all about.
It's true. If only it could fix certain things in life.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I've learned from Pimp My Ride there are certain things it can't fix. But yeah, no, man, I love that. I love that vibe. I always do somewhat of a speed round that never ends up being one, but I want to do it because I have more questions, but I'm curious on how you answer things when you can't elaborate, because that always puts people on the spot.
Go. I can do that. Try.
This is going to be always a personal opinion.
Yep.
What's like the best fight, in your opinion, that you've ever watched? One of your favourite fights that you just like, this is one of the best boxing matches of all time to you?
Best boxing matches of all time would be, from a personal favourite, Sugar Ray Leonard and Wilfred Benitez. That was my favourite fight of all time. And I won't elaborate it because I'll go on for a while, so I can't.
Okay, well, just sounds like it's one I need to watch then.
It's a really good fight.
What year was it in?
Whoa, I can't remember. It's the early 80s. Early 80s, if I'm not mistaken, maybe late 70s. No, it wouldn't be 70s. No, it'd be 80s.
Would I be able to find it?
You would be.
Yeah.
You'd be able to find it.
I'll have to check it out. If you were able to train with someone for a day, like it could be anyone that you could train with, you could be in one of those dingy boxing gyms and you could spar with someone, you could do pad work, learn from someone.
Yeah.
Whether it's another boxer or a coach, just basically have a day in the gym with anyone on the planet. They can be alive or dead.
Okay.
Who would you choose?
Could I have 4?
It's a big ask. All right, 4's fine.
If I had perfect world.
Okay, perfect world.
Perfect world, 4 people. Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, Thomas Hearns, and Marvin Hagler. Because at that time and era, they were the 4 kings. So they fought each other, fought other people. They were the 4 kings. There was no fighters, to myself, that I would favour more than those 4 men.
But you'd want them the way they were at the time, or now with the knowledge that they have?
Now at the time, the age that they're at now. Because it's not about them showing, it's more about their explaining.
Yeah.
Them elaborating on stuff. Because a lot of them guys still move around a little bit now, but not to what they used to. Back then, when they're in their primes and they're fighting and all that stuff, it's a little bit harder because they're in the mix of their own stuff. When you're older in age, you can explain a little bit more because you don't have to do as much work. You can just tell and show and teach.
I love that, yeah.
Yeah.
If you could fight anyone,
who
would it be?
If I could fight anybody.
Anyone.
I'd say if I could have a fight with any of all 3 guys that I had lost to, that'd be great. But unfortunately, I can't get the rematches, which just sucks. Out of anybody of all time, a guy who you've probably never heard of, Hector Camacho.
Okay. Hector
Macho Camacho. He was the super featherweight and the lightweight world champion, so 2-division world champion. And he was, you want to talk about flamboyant, you want to talk about out there and pizzazz, he was your guy. Hector Camacho, very sad, but he ended up dying very early. But Camacho was a phenomenal fighter back in his day, but he was funny and he'd come out with like a full Batman outfit or like a Indian outfit and stuff. Yeah, he was very much the showman, but I'd love to fight him. Yeah, that'd be the one person I'd love to fight.
Okay. Best song to dance to.
That's a hard one.
I know. But if you've got the dance floor, everyone's watching. All 4 of the boxing legends are there. You're going to bust a move. What song is it?
I'm a big Michael Jackson fan. So,
love that.
Yeah,
love that.
Big Michael fan. But I also love Prince. I love George Michael. I love Bobby Brown. It's too hard.
Legends.
Yeah, I love it, but it's too hard. Okay, hold on. If I was even Elvis Presley, I love Elvis Presley as well.
Yes.
It'd 100% have to be a Michael Jackson song, and I would say there's too many good ones. Let's just put Smooth Criminal. Fine. There you go.
It's a good song.
There you go. Done.
Yeah, that's a good song.
That would have to just be my fast choice, quick choice.
Yeah. Okay. I asked what you had the hardest part of your day is. I guess when it comes to training, everything put in there. I like skipping. I love skipping, right? I actually find it kind of annoying because I have issues with my ankles sometimes that really frustrate me.
Yeah.
So I really want to keep doing more of it. So I've seen a couple of clips of you doing it. I'm like, oh man, I want to move like that one day.
I love skipping. Yeah.
What's the easiest part or the favorite part for you of a day or just to do with your training? You know, we've talked about the hardest.
Yeah.
What's something that you could do forever?
Spar.
Love sparring?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sparring is my favorite part because it puts everything you're learning and everything you do on the other stuff that may not be as fun into practice. So sparring is probably one of the most crucial and one of the most important things going forward into a fight, because you obviously got to think about your plan, your prep, all the stuff going in order to implement in the fight. So without sparring, it's very, very hard to be able to implement a plan when you're just talking about it. It's better off to have action and do it, if you know what I mean. So, you know, like, and you never know, you might have a plan that you talk about and work on the pads, work on different stuff like that as well. But when it get in the ring, they might offer something different you haven't planned for. So always having a foot in the door, as I mean by having a foot in the ring, gives you that little bit of an edge on the point where, okay, well, I've got to adapt here, I've got to change here, I've got to work on different stuff. And it's that constant conditioning, because people forget that there's a difference between fighting in the ring and sparring. You can spar 200-300 rounds in the ring and look like a superstar. But being under the bright lights at a show in front of crowds of people and everything like that, for a fighter, an active fighter is a dangerous fighter. You know, the more active you are, the better, because you're always got your foot in the door. So you're always ring ready. You can be gym ready all the time. You can be in the gym, busting it out, sparring 6 different guys all at once, doing different things. You can spar 2 guys at the same time, whatever. But to actually get in there and fight under the bright lights and in the atmosphere, because a fight atmosphere, coming back to gyms, very much has a smell, has a thing to it. You know, it's got a thing to it. So to actually be in there and fight is very different to sparring hundreds of rounds in the gym. So sparring is probably the most favorite point of mine.
Love that. That's cool. I've always thought it seems to be the most important part.
It's one of the most important. There's a lot, but it's one of the most.
Yeah. It's a big one. Like, yeah, it's from my understanding, it's kind of where people fall apart if they don't do a lot of it. You know what I mean? If they
very much.
Yeah. I got 2 more. One's going to be, this is a silly one that I have to mention.
Okay.
Do you know who Bradley Martin is?
Bradley Martin.
Seen this guy on the internet. He's been pretty famous. He had Devin Haney on his podcast.
He's that big muscly dude.
Big muscly guy.
Yeah.
I've been training for a bit. I'm by no means a bodybuilder, but I've got a lot of mates who are.
Okay.
You've probably, I'm sure, come across this experience in your life. Maybe someone thought they were a little bit more than they are because they do some bicep curls.
Yeah.
I'm sure, you know. What do you think about the little thing that kind of went on there about his kind of talking? His perspective was essentially that he would be able to beat Devin Haney, who's a professional boxer.
Saying about, you know, being able to beat him in a fight or everything like that. He's bigger. Yeah. No. Because combat sports, people from a fighting perspective, we do it. Not saying that, you know, being physically strong isn't an attribute. You know, like when Devin said himself, he goes, if he grabbed him, held onto him, maybe that's Bradley's only standpoint. But to stand there and actually throw down, Devin's going to get the better of him. He's going to hit him 5-6 times before he even throws 1 or 2, you know? And it's not even about the speed or about the power, about everything like that. It's like looking at Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder's a massive dude, and he's got a right hand that comes from hell. But the right hand got him so far before, when he wasn't landing the right hand, he was an average fighter. You know, if his ability wasn't as it should be. But if you've got knockout power and you touch someone, they go straight to the spirit realm, mad. But it's all about how you land that shot. So at the same time, Bradley having the physique and the power, like size is a big factor as well, again. So if he was to grab him or someone bigger to grab someone in that circumstance, easy. It comes to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well. If someone's on that circumstance, if someone's on the floor or if the fight ends up on the floor, I know straight away I'm going to cack it. There's no way I'm fighting someone on the floor other than getting choked out and ended up waking up in the hospital. That's the truth. I'm not going to sit here and say boxing's better than these things and that. If someone gets me on the floor, I'm dead. I'm going to die. But if we're standing up, that's the only chance and the circumstance I have of working. So even like, look how small I am compared to Devon. Devon fights 2 or 3 divisions heavier than me. I'm much smaller. If someone like Bradley or even like someone like yourself, if you guys grab me, like I know I'm physically strong. I know I'm physically strong, but if you guys hold me and you're going to sit on me, where I'm not going nowhere. Like that's the truth, you know? Like I've got to make sure you don't have the power to be able to do that and get close enough to me to be able to hold me and just go straight to the ground. Like true. But yeah, Bradley's definitely wrong about that. Yeah, he's definitely wrong.
I think it's, quite a few people agree with you on that one.
He's definitely wrong. He's definitely wrong.
Lastly, I'm interested in, you've given me some interesting answers. What's the most important lesson you've ever learned?
That's a good one, actually. If I can mix 2 in the same one, because there's very, very much 2, is, you know, patience is one of the most, you know, time-consuming things, but it builds you as an individual, you know, being able to be patient with not just the things around you, but with yourself, you know, patient at what's to come, patient at even emotion, patient at certain things, you know, being able to be wise with that as well, you know. Patience is one, being able to learn patience, where I've always had good patience, but life patience, it's definitely come a long way. And then the first coach I had told me when I was 15 years old, and I fought for the state title. He goes, all I want you to do is be the best you. And I was like, all right. So throughout my whole life now, and the coach I've got now is a different person now, and if you want someone on here to talk about some real in-depth stuff, trust me, you'll probably end up crying after this podcast if he was on here. He's a freak of an individual, he is. But he's helped me build through emotional stuff, things I've gone through in my life, as well as a phenomenal trainer as well. He using that implement from the trainer I had before to now has really shaped me as an individual and as a professional fighter as well, because not only the patience, but also being able to be the best version of myself, not only for myself, but for my kids, for the people around me, holding myself a certain way, a calm way, a politely mannered way. You know, you got to give the energy you're giving out to people is what you should be receiving back. People aren't going to do that all the time. So having that patience to counteract that and be like, you know what? If you're not going to give it back to me, there's no point in me getting upset about it. I'm just going to let you live your life and do your thing, you know? And as time goes by, you got to be able to be content with yourself as well, you know, with the patience, with the time, with building yourself as an individual. We're all trying to strive to get better. So, you know, the support we have around us, as well as being able to withstand that ourselves and be able to monitor and look upon ourselves and be like, look, I'm better than yesterday. Or 3 weeks later, I've finally taken another step forward to what I want to achieve and what I'm trying to be, or what I'm wanting to be for myself. You know, no fakeness, no pretending to be something I'm not, just being you.
Good answer.
Yeah.
I like it.
I don't look as stupid as most people think I do. So.
No, I think you. I don't think you look stupid, mate. I think you saying that you were a fan of Elvis Presley makes a lot more sense now, because I thought you had a little bit of like an eyebrows, like slick back kind of look to you when I saw that. I was like, he kind of reminds me of that like old school way that boxers used to be. Some of them now are like maybe not boxers, but there's that guy in the UFC has all the coloured hair and shit. It's different now. Yeah. It's
revenue. It's people wanting to be different and do different things. Like Conor was the first one to be as outspoken as he was, and look at him, he's the highest paid professional athlete and the highest paid actor for the first time, or whatever the roles were and stuff. Same with Floyd Mayweather, the stuff he was saying, as well as having that, he was untouchable, you know. But people like that need to be in places like that as well. But I very much love the old school style of fighting and the way they held themselves, you know. Like they very much boxing's a gentleman's sport. And UFC, to me, is a little bit more rougher, a little bit more gruesome. Not saying that the mixed martial arts is any worse or better or anything like that, because they all have a place. But it's got a different sort of stylistic motion about it. Where boxing, think of boxing, you think of the old classy boxers, like, you know, like even you get the old photos where they used to roll their hands behind them like that. It's a gentleman's sport, you know, and even most people don't really know about the red and the blue either. Like that comes from Democrat and Republicans back in like the 1800s or whatever, you know, like the people don't really realize that sort of stuff. So it's got a big history behind it. And then MMA is obviously a mixture of all branches put into one. So everywhere has their own place, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, you've found your way of doing it, and I like it, man. I think it's honourable.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here today. I mean, for me, man, this is just a selfish podcast. I've just been learning myself. People are listening, and that's cool. But for me, I've just had all these questions, and I think one of the most interesting things for me in doing what I do is that really I'm just having conversations I want to have anyway. We just happen to have a shit ton of lights and cameras and mics to record it.
Yeah, good.
So for me, it just gives me a way to kind of ask these questions. And also I just love the fact that someone could be listening and learning from it.
Yeah.
So thank you for being here today.
No, thank you for having me.
Mate, it's been my pleasure. I will give a shout out to Total Physique, which is where we are doing this podcast right now. I'm going to shout out the videographer Alex as well, because he's a
Go
great
Alex.
guy. Yep.
Alex.
He's loving it. And I will always give a shout out to Achievement Apex and Power Pit Rockingham. Those guys have believed in me for a long time. And Supplement Mart, these guys are doing good stuff as well. Pet Test Australia, Bulk Gym Chalk, that's me. And I mean, before you go, man, Everlast is amazing. Anyone, who would you shout out? Everlast is crazy, isn't it?
I got to shout out my two beautiful sons first, Hunter and Wilder. Daddy loves you. I got to shout out Mandra Mazda. Mandra Mazda is a big one of mine. Everlast, massive thing of Everlast, but everyone knows Everlast. Come on.
Yeah, of course.
Everlast. And then there's, I'll even give my thing for my stepdad, Drayfly Custom Clothing down in Falcon in Mandra. They do these cool shirts. So he makes all these and designs all them. So part of the merch of myself and all that on my website. So he designs and makes all the shirts. He also does numerous other people's merchandise and things they want to design, new businesses or current businesses that they need shirts, hoodies, fancy attire, whatever you want to make, he can make it. So he can do it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Other than that, give my parents a big shout out, give my partner a big shout out. I'd say that's it.
Oh, I love it. Very family orientated, man. I think it matches the gentleman boxing side of things. I think, man, I speak to a lot of people. There's a lot of levels of genuinity with people, and I just love how passionate you are, man. Thank you for being here today.
No, thank you for having me. It means a lot.
Absolutely, man. I'm happy to be a part of it. Anyone that wants to find you can find you it's Action Jackson, England, which I love, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Does a good job, doesn't it?
Yeah. Is it? Hold on a second. Is that separated? Is it all one word? Action Jackson.
I think there's. What are those things? I'm not. My grammar's.
Put dots in the yeah.
I think my grammar's shocking. So they're like the little line things at the bottom.
Oh, full stops.
No.
Oh, I know exactly. Underscore.
That's it.
Underscores. Make sure you put the underscores in there and find this man. Man, it's been good. Let's do it again.
Yes.
This has been episode 136. Thank you for listening.